Hi everyone, in this video we're going to work through a few of the problems here in our homework and complete the problems. There's a separate video for homework problem 2.1. I made a specific video for that one just because it's kind of a lengthy problem. Here's kind of the information that we had in that. So in this video we're going to look at the rest of the problems. I will walk you through some of them and then leave some of it for you all to do. The first thing I wanted to show you though here, maybe I should click this tab, is in 2.2. It asks you to create yourself or copy the general journal from 2.1. So I wanted to just kind of show you how to copy that over and get started with it. So to copy something and just paste it into a separate tab, there's a few different ways you can do that. I'm going to do it by clicking into the row here and holding the left button on my mouse and dragging down to highlight all the rows that I want to copy. So the whole general journal essentially from top to bottom. Then I'm going to hit copy up here. And so you can see kind of the little outline showing it's copied. Then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to paste down below. I'm going to highlight the first row there and then right click and click insert copied cells, and you can kind of see there how it just populated through. And then with that said, I'm gonna delete that row just to kind of clear that out, and then let's just do a little formatting. I'm gonna make that row smaller. Then I'm gonna highlight all the columns to go over the edge of one of the columns so your cursor changes like that, and double click, and that will basically space out the columns to be the appropriate length to have the information showing. We have these yellow check marks we don't really want, so I'm going to highlight this column, and then I'm going to go into my formatting and click no fill. That'll get rid of all the highlighting. And then I'm going to go highlight everything that we put in previously. Click delete, and now you've pretty much got a blank general journal to start working off of, and you can go through and just like we did here, put all your totals in, and if you want to copy and paste to use kind of that template format for doing the journal entries, you can do that. And yeah, I'll leave this 2.2 for you all to work on. I walked you through in detail on 2.1, and the journal entries, are very similar. So you'll see a lot of similarities. So if you run across a problem that you need help on, refer back to that previous video, and that will help you answer these questions as well. But I want to leave that one for you, and bring in questions to class, etc., or reach out and I'll help you out on Zoom or something like that if you have a specific question. So, okay, let's pop over to problem 2.3. And in this problem, we're preparing financial statements for Oyoko. Let me change the title on this. The version you will have the updated names here, so don't worry about that. But we've got these balances here on your, I'm looking at my packet. I've copied and put these also here. So I just wanted to do this so you guys can kind of practice some Excel skills. And then we've got all of our financial statements here. And so really the goal of this is just to familiarize yourself with how to prepare the financial statements and, doing net income first, so on and so forth. And so let's go ahead and do that process. So we've got kind of a jumbled mix of accounts. So we're going to need to kind of pick and choose as we go. I'll do one thing here that I think is kind of just, again, some little Excel tricks or tips, if you will. So what we want to do is kind of categorize these accounts by their type, or what statement they go on, etc. And so let's highlight and use our colors to classify these to make them a little easier to link to later, because they are jumbled. They're not necessarily expense here, expense here. These are just by alphabetical order. So let's just highlight our revenue in green. There's only one revenue account. Let's look for all of our expense accounts. So here's a little trick: is you can select cells and highlight them. If you hold your shift key down, we can now, hold your control key down. You can continue to select cells that you want to highlight and kind of go through. So you can highlight all your expense accounts. I think we've got them all picked. And let's highlight those a different color. We'll do them orange. Let's highlight our assets. So again, I'm holding control down and just getting all the columns I want here to have all the assets. Okay, I think that's all the assets there. Let's highlight those. Let's put those in blue. And finally, maybe we'll do the equity accounts too, but we've got our liabilities, so accounts payable, notes payable, unearned revenue, and wages payable are all liabilities. And I'm going to highlight those something a little more how about yellow? That stands out a little better. And finally, we've got these again, holding control down, we've got these equity accounts. So brown will be used for those. Okay. So just doing that helps us kind of to pick things out a little bit. So here, revenues we did in green. So we can just link over like that. Our expenses we did in, crap, now I can't remember, orange. So we'll just go here and all of our orange, orange expense accounts. And then let's pull in the totals as well. So there's not, mostly this is just an exercise of categorization, etc. So we got all those totals in, and then let's use our auto sum function. We don't want to do that though. We want to auto sum these to give us total expenses of 125. And then net income equals revenues minus expenses. So 75 of net income. And then let's link our net income, and remember that we do the income statement first because we need net income to bring down to our retained earnings statement. We've got beginning retained earnings here at the end of last year is also the same as the beginning of this year. So the beginning there, our subtotal equals beginning plus net income. And then we're going to pull our dividends in. So let's link to dividends, and that's going to be subtracted. So let's do our formula, equals subtotal minus dividends, and that leaves us with ending retained earnings of 105 is what I got there. And so let's bring that total here and let's now down to the balance sheet. We have common stock and retained earnings. So let's link to the common stock here. And then let's type this one in because it doesn't really have a good, it has this is beginning balance retained earnings, but we know we want the ending balance at the end of the year there of 105. So then the retained earnings second, because we're going to link over to the balance sheet with the ending retained earnings balance. Okay, now let's link over to all of our assets. So we had AR, building. Oh, you know what? Let's do this right. So, and I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to change this to say accounts receivable and accounts payable, because on a balance sheet, you really have those more spelled out is more appropriate. So I'm going to do that. So when we link, it'll look better. And so we want to list our assets in order of liquidity. So we're going to start with cash, then accounts receivable, prepaids, inventory, supplies. Some of these I might have to look actually to, if you guys are kind of, mostly you want cash up front and you want like the more long-term assets at the bottom. If you have buildings or equipment, I'm going to put equipment before buildings. But if you had those switched, it's not a big deal. And then land is the least liquid. So I think we've got everything here. That's 8 different accounts. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 8 blues. So now let's go cash, accounts receivable, prepaid insurance, inventory, supplies, equipment, building, and land finally. And so again, what we're doing is I just highlighted all the asset accounts to make it easier to pull these in with Excel. And we've listed those all out. Let's do an auto sum there to put a formula in to add up all those asset totals. And let's do the same thing here with liabilities. So we'll start with accounts payable. Let's go wages payable and then unearned revenue. Finally, notes payable is going to be the longest to be, paid essentially. And then link in all of our totals for all these amounts. So that's all the liability accounts there. Oh, am I missing one? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh. Well, we'll know if we're missing something if we get to the end and it doesn't balance. But I'm going to put a little bottom underline on that one. And okay, so our total equity, I'm just going to add these two together to get total. And then in the moment of truth, let's add our liabilities plus equity. Okay, 300. So I think we have them all there. Now it looks like everything balances out. And looks like we've got balancing between assets, liabilities, and equity. So this problem is really just about getting familiar with what's on the income statement, revenues and expenses, why we prepare that first, the flow of the different statements, how to get any retained earnings, what goes on a balance sheet, and as far as assets, liabilities, and equity, making sure that your totals balance out. And if you're comfortable with all this stuff, that's great. It's definitely going to be on an exam and quiz. This is very important. These are the key concepts and foundational basics of accounting. So great. That is that problem. And let's move on to the next. Okay, so here we've got kind of a ratio analysis type of problem. And we need to do a little bit of work up here to get some additional figures. And then we're going to go through and do some calculations to do our ratios here. So to start with, let's figure out our total assets. And so this problem gives us a few different items. It gives us net income. We've got liabilities, equity, and revenues. And so from this information, and we want to calculate total assets here. So if we know our accounting equation, we know that assets equal liabilities plus equity. And we have both of those components. So we really just need to say our total assets equal liabilities plus equity. And we need the assets because some of the ratios will ask for them essentially. So step 1 is just to know your accounting equation and be able to back into assets if you have the other two components. So that's that formula. The numbers are the same across. So again, a little Excel help here. Let's just grab this formula and drag it across all the cells. So now you can see we've got each one of the columns and the cells here adding together liabilities and equity to give us total assets. And then here, average total assets. So what we're in here, we're always just going to be taking the average over 2 years. And this is year 1, year 2, and year 3. So this is the current year, or at least the most current last year and the year before. So we can't get the average for the first year because we only have the one ending balance. But for the current and the year before that, we can take the average total assets by adding them together, total assets of this year plus last year, and divide those by 2 to get the average between those two, right? 2 things divided by 2, that's the average. And then again, we can just drag that formula over so that last year's average was 163,472. This year's average is that. And then we can even highlight these two cells because that's the same formula we're going to want to paste in over here. Copy that formula from those two cells, and we can paste that in over here to take advantage of Excel and just make it easy on us to calculate those averages. Okay, so now we have the information above filled out, so we can do some of our calculations down here for ratios. So let's put our Excel equal sign and say we want total liabilities divided by total assets. So pretty simple, total liabilities, and we backed into total assets. That's basically all we need to do, and we can just drag that formula across, and it will tell us total assets. And so this is our debt ratio, and what we're saying with this ratio, you guys and gals here, everyone, you can read up in the book about what the debt ratio indicates. I'll leave these C and D for you all to respond to. But as a hint, what this ratio is showing us is which company, Target versus Walmart, has more liabilities as a percentage of their assets, right? And so as you take on more debt, that ratio is going to increase, right, compared to your assets. So I'll leave it at that. Let's go into our return on assets. So this is where our average total assets come into play. So we're going to say equals our net income. So that's right there. Let's select that. Divided by our average total assets. Pretty straightforward. And then again, we can just copy that over. We can't do it for this year because we don't have averages for that year because we don't have the year before. But that's okay. So we can then Control C to copy and Control V to paste in over here for Target as well. And you can see our return on assets. And then again, your task here, I'll leave up to you all, is to explain which company has the best return on assets. And again, with C, explaining which company has the greatest financial leverage, which one is taking the most risk from a debt perspective. So pretty basic. Once you guys finish with all this, you can do the Control tilde to show that's what E is asking for, so that I can see that you did do the formulas, followed along, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you learn some Excel tricks by watching me, and I've been using Excel for a long time, and so if you can get comfortable and fast with it, there's a lot that you can do, and that's a valuable skill just to have as a student and as a future employee. So if you ever see me do a trick and you're like, hey, I need you to explain that again, feel free to ask in class. I can pull up a spreadsheet and show you all how to do certain things like that. Happy to share my knowledge. So go ahead and fill out the rest of the the explanation here. Do your journal entries, from 2.2. Refer back to the 2.1 video if you have questions. Try to find a comparable transaction from 2.1 and refer back to that video if you need help. Refer to your text, though, as well. Use all your resources you can. And hopefully this helps, and good luck, everybody. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you.